LTH product briefing. We are delighted today to be joined by Ian Nelson, the president and co-founder of Hotshot. Welcome, Ian.
Thanks for having me.
Hotshot is a learning platform, a rather distinct one and one that is used by many of the law firms. Curious to know a little bit about you as a founder. How did you come to develop Hotshot and what was the inspiration behind it?
Well, I'm a recovering lawyer myself. I spent about 6-7 years as a corporate associate at a big firm in New York, Kramer Levin. I never really forgot the experience of showing up as a junior associate. First week on the job, I was assigned a deal and the partner says, okay, Ian, you are on a reverse triangular merger. Go look through the due diligence and tell me if anything looks weird. I thought everything sounded weird. I had no idea what any of that stuff was, even though I had done very well in law school and law review, the whole thing. And that just seemed a little off to me. And that always stuck with me. I always just had this interest in the back of my mind about efficiency and training and education in law. After practicing, I helped start and run practical law company in the US, which is really where I got exposure to the services side of the business. And I just loved that experience and what PLC does and did. So after Thomson Reuters acquired Practical Law Company, my co-founder and I, Chris Wedgeworth is my co-founder, we left to start a business, didn't know what it would be, and it turned out to be Hotshot because I and he came back to this idea of training and education. So that was our mission from the beginning.
And what was the gap in the market that you saw that you really thought Hotshot could fill?
Drawing on that experience I had as a clueless junior, I knew that that problem still existed. It existed across the board. Law schools do a great job in lots of areas, but traditionally not necessarily preparing students to be practice ready. And then they get to the law firms and feel overwhelmed and quite scared and don't really know what to do. That always has been an issue in law, but before the economy's changed, inefficiency wasn't really a problem. But when we were looking at this issue, when we were starting the company, we thought, well, economics have changed. Clients were starting to push back on firms saying, we're not going to pay for junior lawyer time. Junior associates were growing up with websites like Khan Academy, YouTube, Duolingo to learn this idea of digital learning. And we thought there's nothing like that in legal. And the time seems right to bring this concept of digital learning to legal to help with all these problems from a fundamental human perspective of helping people feel more confident and the training that was sorely needed and missing.
That's great, actually. And it sounds like what would be most useful right now is to jump into the product and have a look. So let's do that.
Let's give you a quick tour of Hotshot. What I'm showing you now is just the logged out homepage. So if anyone wants to check us out, it's hotshotlegal.com. This is all the marketing stuff. But once I log in, this is going to take us to the main landing page of Hotshot. And the site is really set up to be quite simple and clean. There's not much training involved in understanding our website. It's video-based, it's content, it's streaming, but it's organized really around the three main use cases that we support. So this topic page lists all of the content that we have. We have around 300 different courses across corporate, litigation, and business skills. And a Hotshot course averages about 10 minutes of short sections of a few minutes each. So if I go through here, the topic has about 15 to 20 courses in it. And we have accounting and finance for lawyers, and various litigation topics, finance, lending, experts, Excel, M&A, bankruptcy. If I go into a topic just to show you what something looks like, this is the foundation of the site. It's these short, really practical courses. So this is an entire topic just on the basics of M&A. This is designed for junior lawyers and law students. Everything from what is M&A practice to understanding term sheet, deal structures. Okay, given my example of what's a reverse triangular merger. So here, an associate can go in, watch all of this if they want to. They can go right into triangular mergers if they want to. We have resources like little interactive quizzes and downloadable summaries. It's really a nice, rich collection of videos.
Ian, when you say there are short videos, how long approximately would each Hotshot video be on a particular topic?
About 10 minutes or so.
Okay, so it's ranges. Not digestible within someone's workday.
Completely. The idea is someone can pull this up, learn what they need to know, and be on their way very quickly. This is very different from an hour, 2-hour long CLE presentation, for example. This is really meant to support someone right in the thick of it.
Can you talk about the fact that in addition to the legal content, there is content around the business of law. That's really interesting. What types of topics are covered there?
Sure. I would categorize it more as business topics in general as opposed to business of law. So business acumen is becoming a critical skill that associates need to have. Just understanding how to look at a 10K or a set of financials, or understanding accounting terms and finance terms, or understanding what a discounted cash flow model is. So our topic on accounting and finance covers those sorts of things. So I was an English major right to law school. I had no idea what a balance sheet really was all about before getting to the firm, even after the firm. This topic was developed with that sort of thing in mind, overwhelming requests from customers. So we put together understanding financial statements. So it really covers the basics. And with video, you can do interesting things like show how transactions affect financial statements and things like that. We are built for lawyers. So a whole series of courses on how financial concepts apply across different practice areas. It's one thing to know what a balance sheet is, but what's a closing balance sheet in an M&A deal? Or what does a litigator need to think about when looking at a set of accounts, or et
It's so
cetera, et cetera, et
helpful
cetera.
and so practical. Ian, is it possible for firms when they're using Hotshot, for example, I imagine that this is made available to lawyers generally so that they're able to themselves self-serve learning as and when they need it. Do you also work with centralized teams who could put together a curriculum based on the Hotshot videos?
Absolutely. So that's the other use case, is we put together these learning tracks. So we work with our law firm and law school customers, and they handpick the courses that they would like as curriculums for their population, whether it's lawyers and increasingly professional staff are using Hotshot to learn various things. McCarthy and Cosentino is our imaginary law firm at Hotshot. Here are some programs we put together for our imaginary law firm. So I know the summer season is coming up. Here's a program of corporate topics for summers. Here's something for a mid-level academy. Here's something for a transactional boot camp. So 100%, we're working with our firms on that. That does bring up this point. We talked earlier about CLE. We also have CLE tracks. When we started Hotshot, we did not want another CLE provider. There were great CLE providers out there, but we wanted to focus on content that was as short as possible, which doesn't really play into CLE rules. The problem we were trying to solve was not provide people CLE, it was provide very short practical content. But we work with the ABA now, and we figured out a way to be able to put our short courses together and offer CLE if someone were to watch all the courses in a particular track. And we're in almost every CLE jurisdiction now. So let's say you're assigned to a Chapter 11 case, you can come to Hotshot, watch a series of short videos whenever you want to. And depending on the state you're in, you can get different amounts of credit.
So say you have time for 2 videos now and then another 2 in a week. Does the system add that up? And then eventually when you've watched all of them, you then are certified for that CLE hour?
Yes, our system tracks that, and you then emailed your CLE certificate. It sort of flipped the model a bit, right? When we launched this topic, we made a sort of a joking around line. We said content built for learning, not CLE. Now with CLE. And that's not to say that CLE content is not built for learning. It's just a different take on our content, really.
Having worked in firms myself and worked closely with professional development teams, I've seen firsthand how so many firms spend a ton of time and energy developing their own curriculums, getting their partners involved in recording videos, really to do effectively what you're doing, but the firm is doing it themselves for their own associates. Do you ever run up against people saying, well, we have our own people doing this, or how can Hotshot come in and support firms that have traditionally been doing this type of work themselves?
Sure. And of course, you won't be surprised that I would have an answer to that, especially with the sort of PLC background I have, and my co-founder as well. I mean, we introduced to the market at that time, look, there's a level of information that any firm needs. That's generic. There is no firm X structure of a reverse triangular merger, right? A closing is a closing, interrogatory is an interrogatory. You, firm X, shouldn't spend your time creating background materials that are pretty much the same no matter where you go. What you, firm, should be doing is spending your valuable time creating stuff that is unique to the firm, and also the partners should be training people on how the firm does things, sharing war stories, breaking down recent transactions, not sitting there with a 30-slide deck explaining the basics of something. That, brings us to the last main use case and resource we have. So what we'll say to a firm is, look, no one's better to train your lawyers than your lawyers, but let's focus on how you should be training them. And a major result of sort of post-pandemic life and hybrid working environments is firms really want to spend the time training people at engaging and building relationships and letting people apply what they learn. So Hotshot's not here to replace training programs. So we created, in conjunction with our customers, these training guides. It's sort of like Blue Apron in a box, like Blue Apron for law firms. Here's the ingredients, but we're not going to come to your firm and do it. So here's an example of what I'm talking about. Let's say a law firm, a litigation group wants to run a training on defending an expert deposition, right? Here's everything ready to go for a firm to run a really engaging training program. These are instructions for the presenter. We tell the presenter what's covered. Here's what you do before the session. Send them this video so that the associates learn the basics on their own. They can watch it, rewatch it, whatever. Here's a hypo. This is a real life fact pattern we developed with experienced litigators. Here's something to discuss when you actually have the session. There's no homework, there's no memos, nothing like that. Just read this. In addition to that, we offer things like, here are some questions you can ask the group. Start with these questions because you're going to get people talking. Go through the exercise, share some war stories. So we have dozens and dozens of these, and these are supporting just what you said. This is letting firms lean into their unique strengths and capabilities. And this is being used across the board. They're being used at law schools, they're being used at firms, they're being used for mid-levels, for juniors, summers, what have you.
And how do you make sure that all of these materials are up to date?
Yeah, the quality of our content is the most important thing that we do. So for the most part, a lot of the things that we have are fairly evergreen, right? The basics of M&A or Chapter 11, the process and life cycle. That said, we do have things that change, laws change, practices evolve. So we put eyes on our content from time to time at a regular frequency. We have all these checks in place to make sure. And some things are actually dated in terms of the content that we give. So one example of that is we have one topic. We work with the ABA M&A committee to create content with them. We feature their partners from different firms. In some of these videos, we feature information from the latest deal point study that the ABA M&A committee puts out. So when the new study comes out, we take down the content and re-up it for the new numbers. And we talk about any new trends that happen to be at the time. So we just updated a bunch of our M&A provisions courses to reflect the latest deal point study.
I can really see how that would save firms a huge amount in terms of resource. Thank you so much, Ian. This has been incredibly useful. For those watching, we will put the Hotshot URL at the bottom so that you're able to reach out yourselves and inquire about access and more. And Ian, thank you so much for joining us today. Thanks everyone else for watching the LTH product briefing.